So we're still trying to figure out what we think about all of this or what's really happening behind the scenes. On Friday, people thought, okay, we didn't make progress necessarily on this front, but everyone ended saying that basically we were on good terms and these talks would continue. I think over the weekend, there were a lot more questions based on what the president himself was tweeting. What do you think's really happening?
Well, first of all, tariff are taxes, and they tax the people who can least afford it, households, small businesses. We saw that from Goldman Sachs in a report this weekend, but it's falling on those that can least afford it. And just a couple of weeks ago, we saw the Federal Reserve say that 40% of American households have less than $400 in emergency money. But this weekend, we saw that the additional tariffs would cost the average household some $500. This is really impactful on America. And that's why the markets are having this impact.
I think we haven't seen it to date.
No, it takes a while.
Yeah,
this does take a while. These tariffs bleed through the system and will result in higher prices over a period of time. They just announced it over the weekend. That being said, I think all of us agree that the Chinese steal intellectual property. They don't give fair access to markets. We need to do something. And so I'm supportive of the administration doing this. The problem is the approach the administration has taken to date has been not to collaborate with our allies, but to poke at them, like Canada, early on in their trade agreement. So who's sitting at the table with the United States right now in this discussion? We would have had a whole TPP set of nations, but there's nobody there. We're doing this by ourselves now.
What do you think really happens next? Because the Chinese have not retaliated to this point, and that has surprised a lot of people. Larry Kudlow himself yesterday was saying, look, maybe we'll know something later tonight, meaning yesterday. What do you anticipate the Chinese will do in response?
Well, I anticipate the Chinese will do things like not necessarily add duties, but stop buying certain goods where they think the pressure is the hardest on the Republican Party and the administration itself.
In the past,
we see that in
not buying
agricultural goods. That's correct.
In red states.
That's correct.
Clock's ticking, too, towards 2020.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They definitely know that, and they know what Trump feels about the stock market, too.
They do.
And, you know, what is that? You know, we're 1% again. It's like 1%. You know, it's water torture. It's not 10% or 8%.
Decline of 1% this morning.
Decline of 1%, but you know that.
Water torture may be the appropriate metaphor. Right. I mean, the Chinese play a much longer game than we do. Right. We get up in the morning and we do this, and America is so deeply focused on the market movements.
This goes on for, the better chance we have to get the deal that we want, the worst chance. I was reading did you read the Mohammed Al-Arian piece that effectively says that his view is that the longer this goes on for, the better chance that actually we get either not get nothing, but that it's sort of, we get a ceasefire, but it's only brief, and it's just a continuation for a very, very long time.
The challenge will be as to whether we actually stop buying the Chinese goods. If the costs are being borne by the American taxpayer here, the average citizen and these small businesses, but the Chinese are still supplying the goods, I don't think they're going to be under as much pressure as people think. And so I think they can weather a much longer storm.
You know, a longer storm, though, ends up changing all sorts of situations. You have American businesses that are looking for other ways to source their goods. They've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, they have.
That's not something you can do overnight and snap your fingers. But the longer this goes on, the more likely you are to see real structural change where the Chinese are looking for other customers, we're finding other suppliers, and suddenly maybe there's less between us.
China's trying to bring a lot of people into the middle class, too. And I mean a lot of people. We don't even, you know, not 300 million. And they got big debt already. They put in a lot of stimulus to get to where they are right here. And I just wonder if that, not a house of cards, but they've got, I mean, there's a tipping point over there where it could be very difficult for Xi to, you know, they're watching this, too.
I think everybody's a loser in this. So, you know, trade wars are bad. Tariffs are bad. You know, more regulations bad. And I think the pressure will increase on both sides.
It's interesting, though, that some of the things that people have said all along, there are certain things that China feels that they're entitled to do that we think, and the rest of the world thinks, this is like outrageous and egregious.
Agreed.
But to them, it's like, this is what we do, and we're not changing this for you, at least not to the extent that you want to. And now we're really seeing that may be true.
Best outcome would be to have all of our allies at the table and putting steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada at this stage. I will tell you, causes deep pain, and I know the Trudeau conversation with the president last week very specifically said, hey, we're taking a bullet for you, both in terms of how we're getting attacked by China directly on our canola and our agriculture, and life sentences of Canadian citizens or death penalty sentences. And we're taking it on steel and aluminum, and we're looking for a little help here.
What are the odds, you think, that the new NAFTA, USMCA, gets approved by Congress here, at least?
So I've been in touch with congressional staff and congressional leaders this last week. I would tell you that the Democrats are looking for a path to yes. I am surprised that the administration didn't grab on to what the Democrats are saying and saying, okay, we're all on the same side. Your issue is enforcement.
At this point? We were thrilled that we could actually reach any sort of agreement that all three countries could say, yes, we sign off on this. To then say we're going to go back and renegotiate sounds kind of like what we think the Chinese are trying to do right now, too.
Well, I think that there are provisions in here that can be amended pretty easily. In my conversations with the Canadians, although they don't want to reopen
the Mexicans? Like that's
yeah, that may be a little bit more challenging, but right. they do have a very large trading relationship.
After they've been saying for so long, it seemed to me that everybody in Congress was on the same side when the president was threatening to yank NAFTA. Everybody was on the same side saying that would be a really bad idea.
Right. Still is.
Still is.
Still is a bad idea.
But now all of a sudden they want to nitpick on small details in the new NAFTA.
I don't think they're that small. Enforcement is really important in these deals, and they're only as good as what they're written. If USTR had collaborated with Congress, I think they could have worked this out together. But this is where we are. Nancy Pelosi's in charge of the House.
Nancy Pelosi's in charge of the House, but we are potentially, what happens if we don't get a deal that actually gets through?
I think this deal will get done eventually. It may have to wait till lame duck next year.